definitely do a better job. So, Laura, we'll get turned over to you. And,
Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Dr. Kunard. I'm a criminology science training. I trained here in our science in Chicago at UIC. And worked in the University of Illinois system for the majority of my career. And I left about a year ago to join CNA, which is a nonprofit research and analysis organization based in D.C. I started here in Chicago, and I'm really thrilled to be presenting and leading a discussion today. CNA stands for the Center for Naval Analysis. But it's sort of an old title established about 70 years ago, and we do a much broader base of work than military work. Right. So most of the work that I'm involved in right now is funded by the U.S. Department of Justice. The majority of our projects right now really are focused, the stuff that I'm working on is really focused on police reform. Dusting off as Chief Case and wherever you went. And I was talking about earlier, dusting off the policies and procedures from 20 years ago and actually putting those into today's context of legal cynicism and procedural justice, which we're going to talk about momentarily. So happy to be here. I'm a recovering academic, so if it gets a little jargony, please stop me. I hope to keep it clear. So, with that in mind, we're going to start with a couple of definitions. Legal cynicism really means the American populace is skeptical right now. And we all feel it. And we all maybe are somewhat skeptical ourselves about what's going on in our government, what the future may bring. We're in the middle of an election cycle, which has been fascinating. So I think there's doubt. We're all feeling doubt about the responsiveness of our government, and in particular, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the criminal justice system in a minute, but I think this goes for government in its entirety. People have doubts about government. Legitimacy we're defining as the feeling that government power is valid, it's legitimate, it's trustworthy, which is a big term in police science right now. We're talking a lot about legitimacy here in the city of Chicago, training of officers on specifically this term of police legitimacy has been going on for a couple of years now. So that's sort of how important this term has sort of bubbled up in policing. And procedural justice, this is sort of the $64,000 term, and it is exactly what John alluded to a moment ago, that the process of going through the criminal justice system or the process of going through any sort of government pathway is actually one that isn't a complete turn off. So the process is much more important than the outcome. Research shows, and I'm going to get to the research in just a second. But when we talk about procedural justice, we generally talk about 4 pillars of procedural justice, which are there in that cute little blue bars there. Fairness, which is really about the perception of fairness. So when you come out of that courtroom, for whatever reason you were in that courtroom, whether it's a property line dispute or a criminal matter, when you come out of that courtroom, do you feel that it was a fair process? You feel that the outcome was fair, but more importantly, the process was fair. Secondly, voice. Do you feel that your voice was heard? You feel that you had an opportunity to say what was on your mind, to tell your side of the story to the judge or the officer who pulled you over, for example. Transparency. Was the process to get to that outcome transparent? Were you assessed a fine at the end of that few minutes in the courtroom? And do you understand why you were assessed that fine? Or was it sort of mysterious and smushy and hard to understand? Did it feel like that decision came out of a black box or a back room that you weren't invited into? And then finally, impartiality. Did someone who was sitting next to you in the courtroom who had the exact same charge as you or the exact same issue as you come away with a different outcome? Or was their process different? Were they treated differently throughout the process? Go ahead. It's a very fine distinction. I think fairness is a little bit of a broader term, and impartiality has much more to do with people's perception comparing themselves to others. I don't know if that's necessarily the best clarification. Okay, so as John mentioned, this work in science is becoming very robust. There is a ton of research study going on around these issues in policing and in the courts, and starting to kind of trickle into corrections as well. The notion of procedural justice is becoming important and really examined in our criminal justice system and indeed in our country, in politics, and government in general. So Professor Tom Tyler, who is now at Yale Law School, wrote a book in 1990, which is sort of the pillar on which all of this research is based, called Why Do People Obey the Law? Which is an interesting question if you think about it. We spend a lot of our time in the criminal justice system trying to figure out why people don't obey the law, and taking what we think are appropriate actions towards people who don't obey the law. But why do the rest of us obey the law? Why do we drive on the right-hand side of the street? Why do we stop at the stop sign? We do this for three main reasons, his study found. So morality being the big one. When you ask people why they obey the law, they say, because it's the right thing to do. Because my parents or my guardians or my big brother or big sister taught me that that is right. That stopping at the stop sign will ultimately save lives. It's best for us to live in an orderly society. We believe in the law, and we're going to follow the law. Okay, if you go over to the right-hand green bar, deterrence has sort of the least weight and least factor. So people don't necessarily obey the law because they fear the consequences of not obeying the law. So fear of fines, fear of time in jail, fear of time in prison doesn't really shape our behavior as much as we as criminal justice experts would like it to. And that brings us to legitimacy, the purple bar in the middle. The perception that legal systems and criminal justice actors have the right to tell us what to do, and we believe that those instructions are trustworthy, are benevolent, are in our best interest, are in the interest of protecting wider society, that motivates us more than deterrence. Now, thinking about what, part of where we want to go in the larger context of this talk today is what can we as criminal justice professionals in our community do to increase levels of trust in our nation, in our states, and in our communities. So legitimacy, that middle bar, is really where we can come into play. It's hard for us to affect people's morality. That's something that we grow up with. Our moral principles are usually not that bendable later in life. Deterrence is something that we could possibly work on, but again, that doesn't carry enough water for maybe it to be worth some focus. Legitimacy is where it's at. So legitimacy is really about changing the perceptions of all of our neighbors and family members and friends about the process that you go through when you enter the criminal justice system or when you encounter some type of government practice. Okay. So if we broaden out a little bit from the criminal justice system and talk about political trust, we're talking not only about the process of going through some type of government process, but also its evaluations of public officials, political institutions, and satisfaction with policymaking and policy decisions. Also, as John mentioned, we are in a crisis right now in our country and certainly in our state of legitimacy. Public trust is the lowest that it's been in 60 years, according to the Pew Research Foundation. And trust varies, as you may expect, by age and race and ethnicity. So this data is a tiny bit dated. It only goes through 2001, but you can see that millennials in America have sort of the rosy picture of trust in government. So the question asked here is, the percent of people who trust the government in Washington to do what's right all or most of the time. And you can see sort of this downward trend since 1997, sort of this general downward slope. And those 2011 numbers where we're hovering around, somewhere around 17% for baby boomers is really telling. This is how we feel about our government, the people that we elect, and the decisions that we should be supporting. Here's another chart that breaks this down by white, black, and Hispanic. Again, you see sort of a similar downward trend. This data only goes through 2010. But this is a fun historical slide because it starts with Eisenhower. But again, it's the same trend, but a downward trend. Like something is happening in our country to make us lose faith in ourselves, in our government, in the people who we should be trusting, and the people who we should have faith that they have our best interests at heart. Okay, here we go, state by state. This is data from up through 2013, and you can see Illinois there is the light green color, which is below average trust. And these are questions about trust in state government. We'll hear some back there.
This looks like a pretty high population. High population.
Yep.
Right?
Not necessarily, though. Texas is a fairly populous state, and that one has above average. But you're right, we've probably run some terms on that, on population. But light grading is obviously not where we want to be.
Well, wasn't there interesting like last month or something about Illinois ranking like third from the last in terms of the government?
Yes, there was, but it didn't come in a pretty picture, so I didn't include that. But yes, there was an updated version of this Pew study that was specifically about trust in state government as opposed to trust in the federal government. And yes, we were third from the bottom of 50 states. Okay, so we've already sort of talked about this, that the process of criminal justice interactions or government interactions in general, most of this research that has been done in criminal justice settings, shapes the opinions on how people feel about that process and that institution far more than the outcome. So if you are, for example, pulled over by a law enforcement officer for speeding, the manner in which that interaction unfolds far outweighs whether you get a ticket. So the ticket or no ticket question is much, much less important than did that officer say hello to you? Did that officer explain why he or she stopped you? Was that interaction pleasant, cordial? Did you walk away from that interaction thinking, wow, speeding, I deserve the ticket? Or did you walk away from that interaction thinking, thank goodness he didn't give me a ticket, he deserved, right? So that's really what research tells us. And I'm citing Tyler here because that's sort of the work that kicks this all off, but there's a huge body of research that underscores that point. There's some interesting research coming out of Australia about time being a factor, and time in these studies are very closely related to the tour of procedural justice called voice. So if officers, and this would probably be extended to judges or other criminal justice actors that everyday people come into contact with, if those people in power and who have decision-making power spend more time making those decisions, people are much more satisfied with the outcome. Also, obviously, if more time is spent, then possibly the person in power stops talking just long enough to hear the person's story. That also increases satisfaction. And then finally, there's a ton of work that since police are abstract, police shape opinions about not only the entire criminal justice system, but the entire government in general. So the behavior and the relationships between communities and police that are in pretty desperate need of repair, not just in Illinois, but around the country, are really taking their toll those relationships are affecting how everyone feels about the courts, the correctional system, but everything else about government. Okay. If criminal justice institutions are believed to be legitimate, then people obey the law, people comply. So when an officer gives a command or issues a request, ma'am, I'm really happy to hear your story. I really want to know what you have to say and what you witnessed or what your vantage point was. But could you please have a seat on the curb right now because, I have to talk with this gentleman over here first. That woman will sit down if they perceive the fact that law enforcement is legitimate. If she does not perceive that law enforcement is legitimate, she will not sit down. And then finally, there's a really nice, robust literature around informal contact with criminal justice experts. So, if the judge is at the supermarket and she engages in a part conversation with a neighbor or says hello to someone who recognizes her, that goes far in building legitimacy. Same thing with the importance of police officers engaging in informal activities and attending community meetings and house parties and neighborhood barbecues. That stuff really matters, and research bears that out. Okay, so this is sort of leading towards our discussion with our distinguished panel here. What does all this mean in today's context? Well, we all read the newspaper and we all are watching TV and understand that our discourse today around criminal justice issues specifically has a lot to do with accountability and asking why and almost questioning everything. I spend most of my time working in police agencies, and a lot of police agencies in America are questioning everything they do and trying to put it into this context of how do we rebuild the trust that was lost, how do we raise legitimacy, and how do we become better practitioners of the notion of procedural justice. So two big national things that I wanted to mention. I'm guessing you're all aware that President Obama convened a distinguished task force on 21st century policing and issued a report last May, which has 59 recommendations for law enforcement agencies throughout the country to consider adopting. And one of the pillars of the report is procedural justice and legitimacy. So, at the highest levels of government, we're recognizing that those are problems. Or we are failing in convincing folks that we know what we're doing as criminal justice actors. And the other one is another big initiative out of the Department of Justice called the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice, which obviously is very focused on building trust and justice. It's currently operating in 6 cities, Chicago not being one of them. And then as we narrow to Illinois, obviously we have a lot of reform and accountability talks and discourse going on in our own state. Our police department in the city of Chicago is currently under investigation by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. And Roger is here to tell you, and John and everyone else in this room who participated to tell you a lot about the State Commission on Criminal Justice and Sentencing Reform. So, I can have 16 more slides about what we're all talking about in this country and towards reform and sort of the lack of procedural justice. But we are now about to turn to our panel discussion instead. So thank you.